Welcome to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. I'm Tammi Mack. Filibuster. In simple terms, to delay or stall. I was always trying to filibuster that spanking for bad behavior from my mama. Boy, I would certainly talk the time away with filler pleas to my mama, but on a more national level. A filibuster could fill our lives with policy that could make or break American democracy. After the Democrats suffered a historic defeat on voting rights last week, debates continue to simmer on the future of the filibuster and its impact on legislation. And while the filibuster's origin in the early American Republic has little to do with race, the practice has changed over time. In 1937, a pro-civil rights senator turned to the filibuster to force his chamber to take up an anti-lynching bill. It worked. To end the lengthy debate, the Senate agreed to bring the bill to the floor. However, the bill would come to an end by the same means, a filibuster. This time by civil rights opponents who would debate for 6 weeks, y'all. Late night sessions, 2 failed votes to end the filibuster, and a lawmaker who spoke for 4 straight days. The filibuster killed the anti-lynching bill in 1938, and its death stands in 2022. Let's get down to business. The business of being Black today is the political filibuster and whether it should stay alive or die. Please welcome political contributor Kira Davis. Hi, Kira.
Hi, Tammi.
The operations director for Soul Strategies, Amani Wells Onyoha. Hi, Amani.
Hi, how's it going?
Radio and television commentator Mo Kelly is here. Hi, Mo.
Always good to see you, Tammi.
And the executive director of Seeking Educational Excellence, Charles Love. Hi, Charles.
Hello. How you doing?
All right. The first question, we go in with it all the time. Why should Black people care about the filibuster? As if I hadn't even already spoke as to why Black people should care about the filibuster. But Charles, let's go. Why?
Well, that's interesting. I don't know if there's really a particular reason. There's benefits and negatives to it. So it's kind of hard to say, make it Black specific. Obviously, everything is important because everything's important to us because we're Americans. Everything that changes for the positive or negative affects us. But I think the focus on it, especially, over the voting rights bill that we've had in the last couple of weeks, it grew larger than the filibuster, right? So it wasn't really about whether the Senate should keep it or lose it. It became, that became a proxy for whether the law is good. And I think that's kind of the issue with whether, this debate about the filibuster, whether it should stay or not, it's, what is the change? Like you mentioned before, why they had it, benefits and problems with it, but why the change, right? So is it for political expedience or is there something inherently wrong with it? And that's the reason why I say I don't think that's necessarily the case. We'd have to unpack why you're doing it. Look at the pros and cons and make whatever changes. But to do it for any specific law would be negating any positives that have come from it in the past.
Kira, why should Black people care about the filibuster?
I'm kind of with Charles on this. This isn't really an issue that is sort of Black specific or white specific. This is a political issue and like how you want to get your agenda passed, your bills passed with or without pushback. The filibuster isn't a traditional part of the Constitution. It's relatively new. I think we got it in the 1800s. So it's not like, oh, this was written in the Constitution and we have to stand by it. But I would like to pose an argument that getting rid of the filibuster sounds really great when it's your team, like in the majority, but when it's not your team in the majority, it's going to be a real problem. So Republicans are cruising to victory in 2022 at this point. If the polling holds and the conditions that we're all living in hold, they're going to cruise to a pretty sweet victory in 2022. Do the Democrats want to have given up the filibuster when the Republicans are in the majority and then they can just pass everything through a simple majority? Or would Democrats really rather have the filibuster? That's the question people have to ask. If Democrats want to get rid of it, I say fine, go ahead. But then the price is going to be paid when Democrats aren't in the majority. And we have to decide as voters, are we willing to risk that price that will be paid in the future? Or would we rather just keep the status quo and preserve the ability to push back on things that Congress doesn't like moving forward?
Yeah. And great factual point there when you say it is not a constitutional law. The filibuster has nothing to do with the Constitution. It is something that was created outside of the Constitution. Mo Kelly, why should Black people care about the filibuster?
Well, Black people should care about the filibuster in the here and now with the specificity of the legislation which hopes to be passed. And we should give some context. The filibuster is not one size fits all. It's not just one filibuster. We're talking specifically about the legislative filibuster. If we go back through history, the filibuster has changed and evolved over years. It was you needed 2/3 majority of the Senate to override a filibuster or call for cloture. The closing of debate up until 1975. It went from 2/3 to 3/5 down to the 60 senators that we need now. And that's been the case since 1975. But if you look at 2017, then Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell did a carve out on the filibuster for Supreme Court nominees. So you just need a simple majority. He did another carve out in 2019 for lower level executive judicial branch nominees and also federal district court judges. So there have been quote unquote exceptions and carve outs for the filibuster, which weren't specific to the filibuster overall. So Kira Davis's point is correct. Yes, be careful, Democrats, what you do right now, because it'll come back on you. But history has shown it doesn't matter. The Republicans are going to do what they want regardless. So get while the getting's good, because like Kira said, they'll probably lose the House and Senate. So if it's not done now, it's not going to be done at all.
But if they get while the getting's good, let me pose something to you, Mo. This Voting Rights Act bill is going to get an immediate constitutional challenge. It probably won't hold up in Supreme Court. So now Democrats have voted away the filibuster, got rid of the filibuster, and then to get this act through that might not withstand a constitutional challenge. And then where do the Democrats stand?
But that presupposes that if the Republicans get in power, they won't do away with the legislative filibuster as well, as evidenced by recent history. And I would say the Democrats, and I'm not one, but I would say the Democrats should govern as if they are in power, not what someone might do if they lose power. And they're in power right now because Black people, going back to the question, voted this guy, President Joe Biden, into office. He needs to deliver on voting rights. He started off with Build Back Better. That was a bad idea, but he's let the filibuster get in the way of his legislative agenda. And if he doesn't take care of business, he will be voted out.
Amani, why should Black people care?
I totally agree with what Mo Kelly said. In order for us to even, or the Democratic Party to have any opportunity or chance at retaining power, they must get things done. And as far as Black people are concerned, our votes are always the main ones that are solicited in order to save democracy, in order to preserve Democratic Party power. And each election cycle, we're giving all these promises. We're told that so many things will be done if we simply continue to lend our vote to this party. But in order for us to reap any benefits of our votes and stop feeling so taken advantage of or just being used as a talking point whenever campaigning season comes around, it's imperative that the Democratic Party remove the filibuster and get certain things done, or they're not going to be able to just tap on Black votership whenever they need it, because people are going to start to open their eyes. They're going to start to see that this is just a talking point, that these are just empty promises, and we are being essentially used for our numbers. So in order to alleviate some of that tension that can begin to arise, they have to deliver on those promises.
Kira, Amani has a point here. Shouldn't they do what they need to do regardless of what a future outcome has in store for these elections?
Sure. I thought Mo made a great point. I think Amani makes a great point. I mean, listen, I'm in favor of Democrats eliminating the filibuster. I think it works out in the Republican Party's favor. So I think if they want to do that, just to get I mean, Mo makes a really good point, like govern like you're in power, and this is always the complaint. I mean, Republicans have this same complaint too, right? Like, hey, you're in power, just govern like you're in power and deal with the rest down the road. But my original question or concern stands, this Voting Rights Act, it might not even be a success, even if you do eliminate the filibuster, so then you're still not delivering on it. At least this way, Democrats could say, hey, we tried, but we couldn't get past the filibuster. But then if they do get rid of the filibuster and then the act gets challenged in court, and makes it to SCOTUS, and then SCOTUS strikes it down on constitutional grounds, then the Democrats have really come up empty and they have to bear the shoulder of the blame. And so, like Amani said, Black people are kind of tired of being taken advantage of and not being able to have the things they want delivered. So I think the Democrats are kind of in a catch-22 in this.
I find it so appalling, disrespectful, and just flat out, treacherous that in 2022, Black folk can't get things into legislation. I mean, it's almost as if we were back in the 1800s. I mean, we can't get the anti-lynching bill done. We can't get voting rights done. Where are we? Is it really 2022, Charles?
Oh, that's the key. I mean, we were talking a lot about the parties, and I think the party is the issue. Mo mentioned not being a Democrat and me not being married to a party. I look at it like they're both right in saying that if you're in power, you should, fight like and push for what you want to do as if you're in power. But the tool shouldn't be looked at whether we keep it or not based on the party that's in power, because that changes. Mo mentioned Mitch McConnell and his carve-outs, but you also have to look at Harry Reid. Would we have those 3 picks by Trump on the Supreme Court? Obviously, we wouldn't have them without Mitch McConnell's carve-out, but would we have Mitch McConnell's carve-out had we not had Harry Reid's carve-out in 2013? So I think that all of this is because we're focused so much on what the party wants, forgetting that no one's really winning with a mandate. We don't have politicians here that won with 65, 70% of the vote, at least as a party of a whole nationally. So with the simple majority kind of hurts it from that standpoint, because it's not really in a representative republic, so, showing a clear view of what the country wants when you can't get 60 votes without working together. I think that's important.
Yeah, that's extremely important. And I love that these parties are really dividing our nation. And I'm with you on that, Charles. We need to kill these parties altogether. And I don't mean that in a literal way, but I do mean in a literal way. We got to go to commercial break. We'll come right back on The Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack on Fox Soul.
We're celebrating Fox Soul's 2-year anniversary.
Yes, turning 2.
Cocktails with the Queens.
Big shout out to you, Miss Claudia Jordan, for getting this amazing group of girls together.
Every Monday night.
Lots of groups don't stay together. Lots of shows don't stay together because of personalities, and we have managed to make it happen. I'm proud of this show. Our Wi-Fi done got together. Okay. We done stepped our game up.
On Fox Soul.
Y'all, I know we cracking jokes, but I really meant what I said about throw everybody under the age of 30. Just throw them away.
TGIF.
Ari Fletcher wanting guns pulled on her. Tory Lanez shooting Meg in the feet.
Wednesdays and Fridays.
All these Asian doll, Cuban doll, African doll. Can y'all stop naming yourselves doll? Just throw away the generation. 10-year gap. Just throw them away.
Worried about your friend, but don't know how to reach out?
You could say, how are you, or get a fake tattoo. You could ask with an app if it works for you. You could chat with them in VR, it's all good. If you think you should check in, yeah, you should.
Whatever gets you talking. Reach out to a friend about their mental health. Whatever gets you talking. Learn how you can help at seizetheawkward.org.
My mom wanted my life to be better than what she had as a kid. When I became a mom myself, I feel like my whole world changed. You don't have to be a climate scientist to want to protect the earth. You always want the next generation to have something better than what you had.
Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. I'm Tammi Mack, and the business of being Black today is the political filibuster and whether it should stay alive or die. Please welcome political contributor Kira Davis to the show, the operations director for Soul Strategies, Amani Wells Anyoha. Hi. Radio and television commentator Mo Kelly is here with us, and the executive director of Seeking Educational Excellence, Charles Love, is here. Charles, you wanted to finish what you started before the break. Go right ahead.
Right. I just know that we constantly hear that the country is so polarized. And that's true, except the parties tend to be far more polarized than the people are, right? So the issue is, there's a great difference between what most conservatives and liberals believe politically, and that's true. But in the chamber, that partisanship is supersized. So the problem isn't really the filibuster so much that every Democrat and every Republican feels obligated to vote the same way, even if there's a little nuance to it, because you get ostracized, Kristen Sinema.
Yeah. What role does the filibuster play in the federal lawmaking process, Mo Kelly?
Well, it's about having debate. It's making sure that the minority party can be heard. It's been, in my estimation, abused over the years and misused as a way to just stall, as you said in your introduction, and make sure that there is no call for the question, that there's actually no vote on the floor, that there's no chance of legislation being passed, so it just dies on the vine. It does serve a purpose where America, if we're intellectually honest, would have a chance to see their senator debate an issue, and America could actually weigh in on these important legislative issues. But now it's being bastardized in a way that we haven't seen similarly since like the civil rights movement.
Well, it is for debate. I understand that. But in its definition itself, it exists to put a delay on the process of whatever the legislation is that they're debating, right?
Yes, it is for that, but we've seen now that our government has grinded to a halt. And to Charles's point, I don't think, or at least the founders, when they put this together, that they thought that we would be in such dire straits when it comes to partisanship, which has made it virtually impossible for either party to effectively govern.
Sure they did. No, I think this is a mistake that we make. We look at the founding fathers like they had some this really great time together, and they put together this constitution. There was no problems. You go back and you read the minutes of their meetings, and they hated each other. Thomas Jefferson, John Adams hated each other. They had the worst publicity campaigns. Like, they called everybody out their name during the beginning of this country. We have been divided from the start. I mean, division has always been a part of this country. My goodness, we went to war with ourselves to the tune of 600,000 lives. So division is a part of it. And don't make the mistake that the founding fathers couldn't have seen what we were up against now. Absolutely not. They were up against kind of the same things, maybe not the same specific issues, but the same passions. And they designed our government so that it is difficult to pass new laws.
Now, that part I totally agree.
I live in California, where it's really easy to pass laws, and it's utter chaos here right now. There's got to be some stopgap. So the idea of our government is that it should be very difficult to pass new laws that affect the citizens of the United States.
No, I agree with that. You're totally right. But what I agree with Mo is what I took from what he was saying is the partisanship part. There's definitely supposed to be robust debate, and it shouldn't be easy to pass a law. I get that part. But, from Washington, partying on his way out the door, his last comment was, do not start parties, right? So the debate is good. He just didn't want everybody to say, we're going to have this obviously not two-party, this group think, well, we're just going to blindly follow what a certain group of people think. I think that's the issue where all Democrats have to vote with each other no matter what. Like, look at the way Joe Manchin's being treated now. Or on the other side, if you don't agree with the party line. Now, I think that's the issue. So the robust debate, passing laws too easily is definitely bad, but I don't think it should be a point where the filibuster would be good, which is why I'm defending it if it was forcing debate, because I don't want a simple majority passing many things, because I don't think 50% plus one of the population agrees on anything. So if you can, keep the law, but make some changes enough to the majority agree with it, that's a good thing. And if not, maybe it should be pocketed. But I don't think the party's just saying, well, we're just not even going to listen is helpful.
So go ahead, Amani.
I believe the filibuster has become a complete obstacle that, yes, it should make things a little bit more difficult to pass laws, but it shouldn't make things impossible. I feel like it's being used as a weapon by the minority party in the Senate at the time in order to completely obstruct what their counterparts are potentially able to do. And we've heard Mitch McConnell coin himself, quote, the Grim Reaper in certain instances when referring to the filibuster, saying under no circumstance will I let my opponents, which is what he sees the Democratic Party is, pass anything or get anything done. And in the 2000s onwards, we've seen the filibuster be used by opposing parties as just a means to campaign, to say, as far as the Republicans are concerned, I'm going to campaign on not what I've been able to do for my party, but I'm going to campaign on what I've been able to stop the Democratic Party from doing. And that's the issue there. We're not getting any law done, and we're not able to make any real progress in the nation.
But are you saying that because the laws that we're not getting done are laws that you want? Because what's going to happen when there are laws that you don't want?
That's a risk that I'm willing to take. But at the end of the day, we have to let democracy thrive. The people have chosen a party. When the people elect people into office and they have the numbers, they are the majority, the people of the nation have spoken. So we should allow their voices to be heard and allow their
I just want to remember this conversation in 2022.
Absolutely. But what I'm saying is the Republicans, they always do what they want to do regardless. They're not scary. They don't hold back. They unify and fight on specific issues all the time, no matter the obstacle, no matter the judgment.
All the time. Like we are in the midst. We are in the midst right now, Kira. We're in the midst right now of what everybody is calling the big lie. We have seen these Republicans get behind the big lie, whether they believe it or not. So Amani is really speaking truth when she's saying, look, the Republicans get behind their part. I can't think what
I'm calling her a liar. I'm just trying to say that I'm just trying to make people realize that this is what your opponents think of you too.
That's my point. I disagree in the sense
in the playing field. We as Democrats are too concerned with what the other party thinks of them. They're too concerned about reaching over the aisle and being kind and being fair and sharing and hugging and having a big kumbaya session when that's not what we're getting from the other side. So let's end that. Let's match energy and let's get things accomplished so that our voters can look at us and say,
but Amani, what energy are we matching? Are we going to match the kumbaya hug energy, or are we going to match the let's tear the
kumbaya hug energy? Don't exist. We're trying to create it, but it's not. It's presently not here in politics, and it's a little naive for us to.
God is itching to get in. He's itching
because it's so interesting listening to people who are part of the party speak, because there's no way. If Republicans heard what you said, Amar, they would die laughing in the sense that. Nothing political about it. It's just that they think the same thing you think, just the opposite.
I agree with that, Charles. But let me say this. Let me pose this to you, Charles.
Okay.
Let's just put a fact on the table. The fact is, when Trump took office, there was a peaceful transition of power that happened. As much as Michelle Obama hated that man, as much as probably Barack, who has not, voiced it as openly as Michelle Obama, had disagreements with President Trump, the two of them walked him to the White House. They actually had a peaceful transition of power. That did not happen when Trump lost.
Well,
that is a difference.
But if you're talking about, I'm assuming you're alluding to the election. I got robbed. This is a fraudulent election. I mean, we must remember, we have to look at the House, that a lot of the people these people on the Republican side after 2020, that they were saying should be, drummed out of office because of their behavior. Nobody really, because it didn't make mass media when Democrats were saying the same thing about the 2016 election. It's the partisanship. It's what they do.
But there was a peaceful transition of power.
While saying the election was rigged.
For
16, not 20.
Right, an investigation that's still going on while Russia's banging on the door of Ukraine under this current administration.
So remember, 2016 was rigged as well.
That makes a fair point.
Yes, you make a fair point. Yes, 2016 was rigged as well, according to. Yes. Okay. You make a fair point. To some. Oh, we got to go to commercial break. Be right back on the Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack.
Y'all, I know we cracking jokes, but I really meant what I said about throw everybody under the age of 30. Just throw them away.
TGIF.
Ari Fletcher wanting guns pulled on her. Tory Lanez shooting Meg in the feet.
Win Season Fridays.
All these Asian doll, Cuban doll, African doll. Can y'all stop naming yourselves doll? Like, just throw away the iteration. Like, 10-year gap. Just throw them away.
Please welcome T.S. Madison.
Hi, Queens.
Cocktails with the Queens.
What is the TS for?
When I was in the sex work industry,
Every Monday night.
we had to show the difference between GG, which we called them then was like genetic girls, and TS, which was transsexual.
On Fox Soul.
But I will say now the TS means trendsetter Madison, honey.
Come on!
Yes. I got a both shots now. Yes.
Damage and Blue, it's a new year, but it's not new year, new me, because I just got back from Dubai and almost went to jail.
What?
This weekend on Fox Soul.
We don't want no problems in here.
Okay, don't start nothing on me, nothing.
Cherry the boom.
Watch your favorite shows of the week.
Brianna, we give you 4 for 1. How about that? Give us that veggie deal. We'll take it.
Fox Soul Weekend.
You are smiling. The skin is flowing and glossing. You done got some last night, didn't you?
Did.
This is the variety show for everybody, baby.
Turned Out with T.S. Madison.
I am a woman. I am not here for no one's validation, no one's acceptance. If you have a problem with my womanhood, that is something you need to deal with.
Every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific.
I told you to stop playing with me in front of you. What's up, everybody? Oh, no!
I'm here to turn it up and turn it out. And trust, you ain't gonna wanna turn it off.
On Fox Soul.
Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack, where the business of being Black today is the filibuster. Should it stay or should it go? Charles, yes, I just want to reiterate that 2016's election was also the big lie. Just so you know. But I don't think that Democrats played it in that way, in a sense of it having a name like the big lie. So that I think the optics of it all definitely shows a difference in the respect for the tradition of passing the torch in a peaceful and agreeable manner, regardless of what your thoughts are. Mo, go.
Look, I break it down to decency, dignity, and decorum. And yes, the right may feel about the left, and the left may feel about the right in a similar fashion. How that played out in our democracy, how that played out in our politics, how that played out in our governance is starkly different. We did not have the Democrats in 2016 trying to levy some 60 different cases around the nation to attack the election in different states, which were not close. We didn't have these series of recounts going on for months and months. We didn't have to call in cyber ninjas to have recounts in Arizona and other places. How it was handled was very different. And the reason I bring that up is that sets the tone for how our democracy moves forward. So that makes it very difficult for a president such as Joe Biden to be considered a quote unquote legitimate president and get anything done when you have the other side saying, this guy isn't legitimate. We are then morally obligated to obstruct everything that he does. How it plays out is very different over these past 2 presidential cycles.
Well, what's interesting is there was a peaceful transition of power with Barack Obama, and Mitch McConnell said, look, I don't care. I'm not passing anything he's doing either. So right. There has been a sense of this partisanship that has been going on in our legislation now, where these parties cannot get together and agree on anything. And I do believe that the respect of the president is where it starts. Amani?
I absolutely.
Really? Well, hold on, Kira. Oh, Kira.
Wow, Kira.
I get that big of a laugh. There's the respect of the president is where it starts. Just like Mo Kelly said, if you don't even respect that that's the president, why on earth would you?
Tammi, for the last 4 years, we have heard everybody calling Trump everything under the sun. Like,
But you assume that I meant only Democratic presidents. You assume that I meant only Democratic presidents. It begins with the respect of the president. I'm saying the president, regardless of what party he represents. So if you're suggesting that the name calling that they did with Trump and whatever, I think that is a disrespect of the president. So Amani, go ahead.
Let's go back to when Barack Obama was first elected. This pattern that we've seen of weaponization of the filibuster has been consistent for the past couple of decades, and it's something that we continue to see worsen over time. And that's why I believe that it should just be eliminated so that we can actually get some legislation passed and we can actually get anything done in this country. We've just seen it be used just to hold the votership hostage, is what it seems like to me. Because once the people are in charge that have the majority votes, they're never being represented or heard because their representatives are completely blocked from acting on anything. And I think this expands beyond the voter bill. That's one huge legislation that we as a Black community would love to see passed. But this goes for the agenda of the presidency as a whole. Without removing the filibuster, what is the Biden campaign going to run on in 2024? What will be their speaking points? What will they be able to say that they accomplished or did? Or what will they be able to say that their votes were used for in a positive way? It has to be removed in order for them to have any chance of winning in the next election cycle.
Is the filibuster a tool used by racists to protect white supremacy, or am I just going a bit? Am I pushing the envelope here?
It's been used that way. Strom Thurmond in 1957. In the Civil Rights Act, he filibustered for 24 straight hours just so that the Civil Rights Act wouldn't be passed. So we've absolutely seen it used that way. And its nasty roots is just another icing on the cake reason as to why we should abolish this tradition, because we've seen how harmful it can be used against the Black community and any positive legislation that anyone wants to pass.
Sarah, it is compared to an abused and outdated Jim Crow relic.
Absolutely. The House got rid of their filibuster in 1888. They've been done with it. They said, unfortunately, this is just a blockade and we're not able to effectively govern. So let's get rid of it. So we have to ask ourselves, if one side of the aisle or one side of the legislative body got rid of it almost 200 years ago, what are we really clinging on to and why?
Oh, Kira.
Maybe Monty just said something really interesting. I thought she said, our legislators are holding us hostage over the filibuster. It feels like we're hostages. And it made me think, maybe the real problem is us. Maybe we need to be electing better legislators.
I agree with you on that as well.
I actually disagree. I don't think we like our congressperson. We like our senator. Unfortunately, we like them, I think, for the wrong reasons. And so if we're going to send a Marjorie Taylor Greene to Congress, there is a solid voting block behind her. And that's respecting the will of the people. What I think is we bastardized, to use that word again, what a responsible legislator should do, what that person should be sent there to do. And we have legislators now who are being sent by people who think that their job as a legislator is to just block the other side. And we don't need to necessarily destroy the filibuster. None of this is permanent. If you talk about Mitch McConnell, as I did, or even Harry Reid with the carve-outs, none of this is permanent. You can always bring it back. You can always change the rules of the Senate. So I don't think we should not be having this discussion where it's either this or that. It could be this for right now, and then later it might be some of that.
When Mo said that,
it
made me laugh because he said we could bring it back. I'm like, yeah, when the legislators grow up, because that's going to be a period of time. Because he talked about respecting decorum. You talked about, Tammy, about the respect needing to come from the presidency and how our legislators act. And I just think, pointing again at both sides, because I'm not on one, is that I remember there's a woman running for governor in Georgia, Stacey Abrams, I think is her name. And I wonder, has she conceded the last race yet? Because the last time I checked, she said she was governor, but now she's running for governor again. But I don't see people, I see her being raised as a savior and put on magazine covers. Nobody said that was disrespectful. You should have conceded. I don't think she's conceded yet. So
Trump said he was the first to not concede, but I think it was Stacey Abrams who gave history to not conceding. And ever since then, there have been other legislators and senators who have not conceded in the
she's running again, though. She's running again. She hasn't conceded that election now. So I guess she's running for re-election.
It's going to be difficult when they have to figure out like her term limits. And what.
Who are the victims of voting rights filibuster?
The voters. So in the past election, a lot of Republican legislators have implemented policies across our nation that have made it a little bit more difficult to vote because they simply don't have the numbers. If we were to let a free and fair democracy where everybody of age who is a citizen could vote, ideally or ideologically, whenever we do blind polling on a lot of these issues, they're massively supported by the majority of Americans, and they are, quote, progressive issues, access to education, access to healthcare, affordable housing. These are issues that are blind and they affect all Americans, and the majority of Americans do support changes and positive reform on these issues. So in order for Republicans to be able to attain or keep their power, they have to make it harder for people to vote. And essentially, it's the Americans who are the victims of this, because if they're not able to elect the leaders that align with them and their ideologies and what is the most popular ideology, then they'll never be heard.
And this is a longer conversation because now you're getting into the Voting Rights Act and not the filibuster, which is probably a whole other show, Tammy. But we could break down what's in the Voting Rights Act and why some people don't want to pass. And it does have to do with federalizing elections as opposed to the constitutional, the way it's laid out in the Constitution, which are state level. I mean, there's all kinds of, I appreciate your point of view. I'm not trying to slam your point of view, but there are actually other ways to look at what's in the Voting Rights Act bill. And a lot of people haven't read it. They've only heard what their pundits are saying. So I would just encourage people to read that as you.
Well, I mean, that sounds cute, Kira, but we put our representatives in so they can read it and do the right thing. I don't think the average voter
you need to know what it is. We just talked about how we can't trust them. Why are you just gonna?
Let's take a quick break. Come right back on Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack.
COVID-19 has changed how we hang with our girls. Now it's time to take the first step that lets us get back to girls tripping instead of solo sipping. Before we can safely come together, we need the facts. As COVID-19 vaccines become available, you may have questions.
Should I get it? Is it safe? Should I wait?
It's smart to question. Now get the facts at getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you.
Meet the scan, a simple procedure whose mission is to detect lung cancer early.
I'm here to save you.
But I feel fine.
That's great, but you may still be at high risk for lung cancer.
Oh man, that's a new fence.
If you smoke, early detection could save your life. Learn more at savedbythescan.org.
This one's for the real ballers and shot callers, the sisterhood of women in tech. They're discovering cures, building apps, and programming the blockchain. They're CEOs, worldwide hustlers who can make it rain. They're tearing down the old boys club and seeing big gains. Because when women in tech come together, you know they make that change.
Damage in Blue, it's a new year, but it's not New Year, New Me because I just got back from Dubai and almost went to jail.
What?
This weekend on Fox Soul.
We don't want no problems in here.
Okay, don't start that won't be nothing.
Cherry the boom.
Watch your favorite shows of the week.
Brianna, we give you 4 for 1. How about that? Give us that veggie deal. We'll take it.
Fox Soul Weekend.
You are smiling. The skin is flowing and glossing. You done got some last night, didn't you?
Did.
Well, welcome back to the Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. The business of being Black today is the political filibuster and whether it should stay alive or die. Please welcome political contributor Kira Davis to the show, the operations director for Soul Strategies, Amani Wells Anyoha. Radio and television commentator Mo Kelly is here, and the executive director of Seeking Educational Excellence, Charles Love, is here as well. So let's see. Let's go here. Is the Senate's blockage to advance voting rights a threat to our democracy? Is it a threat?
I wouldn't say it's a threat. I would say it's an obstacle. A threat would say to me that if we don't do this, then we'll have irrevocable consequences. I don't think it's that. I think we're stuck at a point where we are not negotiating in the Senate or even in the House in good faith. We're not talking about a time where Tip O'Neill was Speaker of the House and Ronald Reagan was president, and they disagreed and they found some way to agree on something. We have a legislative body now in the House and Senate which has no desire to agree. And when you don't have any desire to agree, then the filibuster takes on an added importance and consequence. So I don't know if it's a threat to our democracy, but it's an obstacle that I'm not sure we can get over in the near term.
Kira, you talked about how the filibuster is good if you're on one side of the coin when it's good, but maybe not so good if you're on another side of the coin. It's only going to work for you when it works for you. So getting rid of it might not be the best idea. I want to take this back to 2006. 17 Republicans, including Senator Mitch McConnell, supported the Voting Rights Act enacted to combat the racist voting laws of the Jim Crow era. Why are they changing their past positions now?
I don't think they're changing their past positions. This bill is not that bill, which is why I was saying, like, read the bill. I actually did a whole breakdown on my podcast about I actually read Georgia bill line for line on my podcast and Texas bill line for line, so people could be informed about what's in it, because we've been talking a lot on air and off air about how divided the Senate is, and Congress in general. But the truth is, it's us. They're the symptom, but we're the ones who are divided. And I think a lot of times we're depending on too much on other people to give us our descriptions and information, and some of the heat. Not the passion, but some of the heat and the vitriol might be taken out of these conversations if we all had a better understanding of what's being debated. So this bill is not the same as that bill. This bill has this is why I was saying that this bill is going to have a constitutional challenge, and you can ask any constitutional scholar, it has some problems in it. So that could cause a problem for the Democrats down the road. And you have to understand there are things that Democrats don't want to have to go out in public and explain either, like the idea of what they're going to do if it does get struck down on the Supreme Court level. And then Amani she made an excellent point earlier when she was talking in favor of getting rid of the filibuster. She said, I don't know what Democrats are going to run on. If they don't get this passed and they don't force through the legislation that we want, we being people on that side of the voting fence, then what accomplishments do they have to run on? I mean, the way things are looking now, it's, empty shelves and war is on the horizon and gas is record levels and schools are closed. Open.
Hey, Tammi, I gotta jump in there if I may. The past is prologue. The same thing was said about Obamacare. If you pass this, we don't know if it's constitutional. It may be sent up to the Supreme Court. John Roberts is Chief Justice. It might get shot down. And then what will the Democrats have with that? And that goes back to my original point. You have to govern in the moment. You have to do what you can now. You can't worry about what the Supreme Court might do if they find it unconstitutional. You need to pass this because you need to worry about the 22 midterms. You have to worry about the 2024 general election. You have to govern as if your political lives depend upon it, not what the Supreme Court might do if you get it passed.
Yeah.
And see, that's the problem. It's do what you have to do in order to win. So it's still another version of, what's best for my party, be it Democrat, Republican, as opposed to best for the issue. And Kira made a good point, even though she understands the law better than most of us, though. But earlier, she said something bigger, that this is, constitutional stuff, because who runs the elections, who's in charge of the elections? Because Amani said something about how the voting rights law is important because it helps the citizens and who it hurts. But and she made a point about the Republicans not being able to win without making these changes because they don't have the will of the people. But that may or may not be the case for a presidential election. But in the states, it's been proven that they are able to win states, and the states control that state's voting laws, right? So what they're fighting about is whether they lose some of that power in the state, and that part's in the Constitution. So we have to look at that before we just say what is best for any given party or what's best for the people.
What is the strongest argument for keeping the filibuster for progressives like Senator Joe Manchin?
Trump. I would say that the best argument is Trump's 3 Supreme Court nominees. They wouldn't be there if they hadn't made changes the last few years. Granted, it was Mitch McConnell's change, as we mentioned before, but that was predicated on Harry Reid's change. They didn't go to simple majority on one, they wouldn't have gone to the other.
And there was a big speech. Mitch McConnell gave a big speech when that happened too.
Begging them not to do it.
Because we had it bookmarked because we were like, oh, this is going to come back to bite them. But he did this big speech where he was like, you'll regret the day that you did this. We can do this. But, you know, the filibuster, our whole Constitution, our whole system of government is ostensibly set up to protect the minority, right? Which is why we have so many conversations around whatever, gay rights, Black rights, whatever. The Constitution is, you know, the most important minority is the minority of one, the individual. And so the filibuster is a minority protection. Now, it's not strictly constitutional. Again, going back to the beginning of the show, we didn't always have the filibuster, so it's perfectly fine to be arguing about this. It's perfectly fine to get rid of it or not get rid of it. This is not something that's set in stone, but it is sort of a reflection of the desire to protect the minority. And again, which is why I'm always like, well, I don't know, like, it's great when the people I like are in, but then what about when the other people get in?
Right. Well, that's why I simply just say the reason I think it's bad is because why you're doing it. Like Kira said, getting rid of it is fine. If you're getting rid of it so I can get that one legislation passed, that's a problem.
Yeah, but it's not about one particular piece of legislation. It's about the party's entire agenda. We have seen the infrastructure bill fail. We have seen a lot of things that the Biden administration claims that they want to do. We know that we can't even bring it to a vote because we will not get past that 60-person threshold. So it's
why?
You
say that the Republicans can't win. They need to get enough votes. Why can't they get enough?
It's we can win over 10 Republicans from the other side to agree with us. It's just not realistic in this political climate that we're in. It's not realistic. We were having these conversations in the 1970s where it was a bit more realistic. Even in 2006, when George Bush was president, we had a lot more collaboration. But in this current political climate, it is not realistic to think that Republicans will cross over to our side and we can get 10 of them to agree on these types of legislation.
Maybe the bills are passing because the bills are bad. Is that a possibility?
I don't think so. But again, let's remove it and let's let the party decide. Why block things just because you can? You know, the minority people do not have the power. So I don't think it's fair. And I don't think it's truly a representative democracy if the minority people in charge are allowed to block anything that the people who actually have power are trying to propose. That's not democracy.
And I wonder about the filibuster. If the filibuster is there for debate, as you suggest, Mo Kelly, and it is there for debate so that you can debate your side and sway the other side to understand what it is that you're trying to pass into law. But if the other side is adamant about not even hearing your debate, then what does it really matter, Mo Kelly?
I don't know if it matters. And I firmly believe that the Democrats should govern as if they're Republicans, because I know as sure as I'm sitting here, and I'm actually a fan of Mitch McConnell because he doesn't play any games and he plays to win. If we want to talk about the filibuster was what stood in the way of 3 Republican appointed Supreme Court justices, we need to talk about the fullness of that process, which led to them. The Democrats were playing by the rules per se, and they allowed the stalling of Merrick Garland. So the Democrats have to learn from history where the Republicans are going to play by some rules, but they're not going to play by all the rules. And if the Democrats played by the rules, they're going to lose. They need to play like they need to win. And yes, it may be only for one piece of legislation, but that one legislation may change millions of people's lives.
I want to say this, Mo Kelly. I have to come to the defense of Republicans here. I'll do it when we return on The Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack.
This is the variety show for everybody, baby.
Turned Out with T.S. Madison.
I am a woman. I am not here for no one's validation, no one's acceptance. If you have a problem with my womanhood, that is something you need to deal with.
Every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific.
I told you to stop playing with me in front of you. What's up, everybody? Oh, no!
I'm here
here to turn it up and turn it out. And trust, you ain't gonna wanna turn it off.
On Fox Soul.
You see certain things get reincarnated in your children. My daughter is very much inspired by my wife's artistic pursuits. So my daughter started making necklaces. She makes what we call affirmation fashion. I tell her every day that your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. And if there's anything better than being beautiful, it's being smart. And if there's anything better than being smart, it's being kind. And reaffirming that every day is our method of making sure her chin never drops. My dad wasn't around, and I remember riding a bike and falling off and cutting myself, and me never just wanting to get back on it. People ask, how your children learn how to ride a bike, and you didn't. I didn't teach them. I just created an environment where they taught themselves, and all I had to do was be there.
Damage and Blue, it's a new year, but it's not New Year, New Me because I just got back from Dubai and almost went to jail.
What?
This weekend on Fox Soul.
We don't want no problems in here.
Okay, don't start no more be nothing.
Cherry the boom.
Watch your favorite shows of the week.
Brianna, we give you 4 for 1. How about that? Give us that veggie deal. We'll take it.
Fox Soul Weekend.
You are smiling. The skin is flowing and glossing. You done got some last night, didn't you?
Did.
Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. I'm Tammi Mack, and the business of being Black today is the filibuster. Now, before we left, Mo Kelly said that Republicans play to win, and Democrats play by the rules. And here's where we disagree, Mo Kelly. I do believe, I'm defending the Republicans here. I do believe that Republicans play to win. I don't believe that they break the rules. I believe that they make the rules that they can follow that help them play to win. So I don't believe Republicans are out here breaking the rules.
Merrick Garland?
No, I don't think they're breaking rules. Okay. What is your thought behind that?
If we want to talk about Merrick Garland, there is a case to be made that is sort of an unspoken rule that once you have somebody that's being confirmed at the end of and that was the argument they used, right? Somebody that's being confirmed at the end of a administration that's a lame duck administration, who's already on the way out.
1987, Ronald Reagan.
I'm just giving you the other side of the argument.
But you know the history, Kara. You know the history. 1987, Anthony Kennedy was confirmed in 1988 of February. So there is precedent of a second-term president, and the majority was the Democratic Senate, and they still confirmed him.
Sure, great, fair enough. Here's my thing that I've been just really has tickled me during this whole conversation, this whole hour, which has been great. Thank you so much for having me, Tammi. Is that the way it's so odd to me, and I talk about this a lot on my podcast, but it's the way that we view each other. We live in different worlds. Everything that everyone is saying about Republicans, Republicans break the rules, they play to win. And the Democrats never are strong enough and never take advantage of this is what Republicans say about their party too, right? If I go to a Republican meeting, that's exactly what they're saying about Democrats. Democrats, they break the rules, they play to win, they walk in lockstep, they never argue. And we're over here trying to play the rules book. And it's just, I wish people could stop every once in a while and just look around and listen to each other and say, hey, we may be on different sides of an issue and we may have very passionate views, but we're not enemies. And when we actually look at each other's stories, we're telling the same stories about each other. And it would be better if we could tell stories to each other and with each other.
We are living in a world where we talk at each other. As a matter of fact, I can go as far to say where we yell at each other, scream and holler. Kira, since I'm on you here, what are some of the topics you cover in your podcast? Just listen to yourself with Kira Davis.
We talk about it. You can go and find those episodes on Texas voting law, Georgia voting law, where I literally go through them line by line. So you don't have an excuse not to know what's in them. And then you can make your own judgments. But it's really a podcast about thinking critically about our ideas, criticizing our own ideas, learning how to express ourselves, learning how to talk through our ideas, because I believe that one of the biggest problems with our political discourse is that people aren't confident in what they believe. And so that makes them tense, right? Because when you aren't confident in what you believe, you're going to try to bash somebody over the head with your point of view. You want them to get it. But if you feel confident about your views, you can go into every conversation just feeling like this is an interesting conversation and I'm not some kind of evangelist. So join me.
I certainly wish that that's how most people looked at things, but unfortunately that has not been the case. Charles, Race Crazy.
Oh, yes, the book BLM 1619 and Progressive Racism Movement. It is a book that is not really what it purports to be when you read the title. It's more directed at liberals who think that there's an issue with the progressive wing of the party, but they feel that they are partisan and they have to be so anti anything that Republicans say, so they can't agree that there's something wrong. So, it kind of lays out some issues and, what the problems are and how they can effectively get involved without leaving their party or, being called a Trump supporter or something that extreme. And I think that we're not focused on solutions enough. So it's like, whatever the problem is, that okay, what we do. That's what we leave off a lot of these conversations, as you say, yelling at, talking to each other. And no one ever says, so what do we do now? It's just, you're a racist or, you're some leftist crazy person. And then we walk away from each other. And then in 5 years, we're in the exact same place we were before. I want that to stop, to kind of, break that cycle and have people, talk to each other a little bit more.
And the truth is, I've been saying on this show for the last, 3 years I've been here, 2 years, I guess. I'm ready for a new party to uproot. I am ready for a new party to uproot. I don't believe everything that's Democratic, and I don't believe everything that's Republican. I won't believe everything that some new party pops up and believes. I mean, we have different beliefs within the structure and confines of our own experiences and our own lifestyle. So it's very difficult for me to go into a voting booth and pick a Democrat or pick a Republican, because I got something good and bad for each of them. Mo Kelly, thank you for inviting me on your show and having me on your show. I really appreciate that kind gesture and hope I served you well. But please tell the other people about Mo Kelly's 2-minute warning.
Well, I'm very, very clear that I'm an independent, no party preference. I believe in right and wrong, not right and left. You can find me on the Black Information Network with my 2-minute warning, 2 commentaries every day, 5 days a week, or you can find me on the Mo Kelly Show, Saturdays and Sundays from 6 to 8 p.m. I would implore people to rely on facts and history, even if it makes your kids uncomfortable. There is something valuable in knowing where we came from as a country. And if we get back to that, we'll get moving forward.
Yeah. Amani, what's the mission behind Soul Strategies?
Our mission is to get as many progressive politicians elected across this country as we
Also, am I hearing, I'm sorry to cut you off, but am I hearing that you might be a part of this party that could pop up, this new party that could pop up?
Potentially, yes. I'm a progressive. Like you guys said, I'm not beholden to either side either. I vote Democratic historically, but I am down with primaries. I want to get people who are going to represent us. And the mission of our company is to offer hands-on campaigning, whether it's hands-on marketing service, call time, fundraising, field strategy, and implementation. And yeah, we want to fuel these elections. We support people-powered politicians and grassroots politicians. So yeah, you can find us at soulstrategies.com, Soul Strategies on Instagram, and my Instagram is that's Amani Wells.
Have these elections become a popularity contest, or have they always been that way, Kira?
Always been that way. It's you just go back and look at in history. I mean, I'm a big history buff, especially American history, and I love reading about elections, especially. And we just have a sanitized version. We do this for the Bible too. Like we sanitize all our saints, but they were really dirty and messy people too. And politics has always been this way.
So Mo Kelly, do you believe that another party, that America could benefit from another party?
Well, when you say another party, it's not just another party. You need to be able to have that infrastructure where you can do something. We have the Green Party, we have the Libertarian Party, but they don't have that infrastructure where they can get candidates get elected. Once they have an infrastructure base, then we can talk seriously about there being a third party in this country.
Or what would it be, a fifth party?
Right.
Yeah, we've got some other parties, but but I think as the generations who are coming up, I think that they have gone so far away from the bull crap that the previous generations have instilled that it could potentially happen this time, Charles. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I know people are going to try it. The problem isn't just like Mo's right about the infrastructure. You also have a problem. There's not two ways. I don't like the both sides reference because there's more than two sides. Like you mentioned, 5 parties. I don't know how you do it. One more party won't do it. And then too many parties, you become like Parliament in Europe, and then it's too fractured.
You become like Parliament in Funkadelic, too many parties.
Or like that Parliament.
Parliament in Funkadelic. Thank you, Mo Kelly. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Kira. Thank you, Amani, for being a part of this discussion on the filibuster. Cocktails with the Queens are next on Fox Soul. That's it for Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack on Fox Soul. Bye, y'all.